to another edition and episode of The Inner Edge. Today's guest is Josh Livingstone, a dedicated husband, a husband coach, a mentor to men navigating the complex world of marriage. Josh has helped countless husbands show up more fully in their roles, break out of passivity, and rebuild connection and trust in their marriage. Whether you're a newly married couple or deeply into your journey, this episode is about stepping up and not checking out. Well, Josh, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. It's very exciting.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, and you're amazing. So I'm really happy to be and excited to be part of the discussion. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Josh, can you tell us a little bit about how you became this unique persona of the husband coach?
Sure. So I worked in Jewish outreach. I do work in Jewish outreach and have been for about 18 years, not 19 years actually. And so I had a lot of students throughout the years who grow up and get married and like everybody could use guidance and assistance. So I've kind of been doing it informally for 15, 16 years, I would say. But then about 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, my wife, who is also in this space in a certain sense, she is a therapist, but she also works with training brides before marriage, and she works with couples and individual clients and stuff. So she came to me and she said, I need to talk to you, which is not usually a good sign. But I said, okay, what's going on? She said that it was 3 women that week had come up to her with the same complaint. The complaint was that they were frustrated that they're constantly going to classes, family life and how to be a better mother and how to be a better wife and all that kind of stuff. And their husbands were also going out and studying and learning, but it was more Talmudic studies and theoretical studies and very, very little, as in zero, practical skills and development on themselves as husbands. And they resented it, and it was causing problems. She told me, why don't you give a class? I'm like, huh? She's like, no, trust me, it'll be good. I'm like, men do not want to hear this stuff. She's like, just do it. I'll put it on my listserv for whatever. Go do it. So I said, okay, fine, no problem. Made a flyer. Fine. 90 people came to the webinar. 90 people came to the webinar. I was like, whoa. And it was that when I kind of realized, oh my gosh, this is a very desired and wanted thing. And the men recognize that. I'm sure a good, healthy number of them, their wives told them that they would be going. But the fact is that there was a big response and people really followed up and were very interested in it. So I said, wow, this has got to be a thing. And so about 3 or 4 years ago, I kind of made it more of a dedicated part of my life. And so I've been doing it since then.
Wow. That's incredible. Was there, there's a concept before we get married, especially personally myself, one of the things that I always like to focus on, even before I got married, was I want to be a good husband. I want to do the right thing. I want to have a beautiful relationship. And then when we get married, I find a lot of times what happens, life happens, you have kids, you have work, and you're juggling so many things. I feel like, that marriage, you've accomplished it. A person takes it a little bit for granted, and that's on the back burner. Do you find from your own experience, Josh, there was a moment in your own marriage that perhaps changed? There's a moment that you said, you know what, I want to take my marriage to a whole new level, and everything changed for you.
So it's a very good question. I don't think there was any particular moment that happened that was some dramatic revelation, but I think I slowly began to realize more and more that, number one, I had much more power to make things better than I thought. And a lot of people, I think, kind of resign themselves, kind of express the same type of energy that you just did. Life happens and we're busy and this, and it's 100% true. Our lives are insane. We're addicted to phones. We work too much. It's all 100% true. But we have much, much more power than we let ourselves feel and that we let ourselves tap into. So as I tried to work on some things, I would fail and fail and fail. And then oh, wow, I actually can change that. And that was able to build on something else. So I think realizing that over time that we actually could do stuff and this could get much better to a huge, amazing place if I put in the work, then that would be great. I think that's one thing. And the other thing that I realized a little bit about myself, but more as I'm, watching other people, I think there's something that's really important. I think a lot of tension is caused because people assign motive to the other person and experience experience the interaction as somebody expressing their own self-centeredness or their own ego or their own whatever, when in reality, everybody's coming from a good place. 90% of people are coming from a good place. Crime is for sure, right? Coming from a good place, but don't necessarily have the skills and the information that they need to convey what they're trying to say in a healthy way. So I think those are probably the two most impactful things that I try to take with me in my own life, and also just speaking to other people, is that you really have a lot of power. This is not something that you have to just throw your hands up at the heavens, number one, or even worse, number two, say, well, it's all her problem. It's not true. And number two is that a lot of the tension is not because she's bad or you're bad or whatever. It's you just need to work on some skills to be able to do what you need to do. You need skills to do everything. You need skills to learn how to drive, meaning it's not something that necessarily comes naturally, especially if we didn't have the best models growing up, but that can all be acquired. And as long as you're willing to give her the benefit of the doubt and she's willing to do the same, and both of you are willing to kind of acknowledge, like, hey, you know what, I don't exactly know how to do this, and you work on it, it can get very, very good. I think those are kind of the two things that I realized the most that were the most impactful to say.
Wow. And do you ever work with women, wives?
So it's a very good question. Typically, no. We will talk to a wife for one of two reasons. Either, number one, I am not understanding what he's saying, or he's not understanding what I'm saying, and we'll work at that for a while. And I'll, kind of express the idea that I don't really hear the problem, and I don't want us to keep running in circles. Can we bring her in so that she can kind of express what she's seeing? And that's very, very helpful sometimes. That's number one. And number two is, of course, if she wants to come in and express herself, that, she feels that her desires for what's going forward are not getting heard or whatever. Those are kind of the two ways that will come in. Very, very rarely do I see people together, and even more rarely a woman by herself.
So Josh, let me ask you this. I'm going to dive right in.
Yeah.
What do you think most men get wrong or misunderstand about their role in marriage?
A lot. How much time do you have? I think all men are different, so everybody kind of gets different stuff wrong. But I think the main thing that men and women get wrong is the understanding that men and women are, it sounds so elementary, but it's messed up all the time. It's so fundamental, and it's so obvious when you say it, but unless you think about it and realize the repercussions of it, you're going to get messed up. And that is, men and women are very different, okay? Which means a lot of different things. But where it shows up the most is, and the most painfully for men, is that men desperately try to help their wives to feel better, or when they're upset, or whatever it is. If their wives come to them and they're upset, the husband very much wants to help. And what he does very much is counterproductive. And then she feels unseen and he feels frustrated, and then boom, right? That's like a classic example. Whenever I give like a lecture on this kind of stuff, I do something like, without fail, I do something called the headache test. Okay? It's fantastic, right? I say, okay, guys, here's the situation. Okay? Husbands, all of you Neanderthals, listen, okay? Right? So you're sitting on the couch and knock at the door. Your wife comes in. Hi, honey. How are you? Oh, I have a terrible headache. Oh, my head is killing me. Men, what do?
Validate.
Yeah. Woo. Efraim, very good. I love it. Efraim, you're good. You must watch the videos, right? So what most men will do is they'll say something like, I'm sorry you have a headache. Can I get you some Tylenol? She will be annoyed and say no. And he will be confused. And then that can elevate really, really high really quickly, right? And he's confused and she's annoyed. Well, what happened? So in the man's head, what happened is like this. She said, I have a headache. Oh, I love you. I want your pain to go away.
Right. Your problem.
So let me get you some Tylenol, because Tylenol is how you get pain to go away from a headache. Completely reasonable. Makes perfect sense. Except you're an idiot, because that's not really what she's saying. But you don't speak woman, so you don't know that, right? What she's saying when she walks in the door is, as wonderful as you are, she's quite well aware of the fact that you take Tylenol for a headache. You're amazing, right? But she doesn't actually need you to tell her that, right? So when she comes in, she's saying, I have a headache. What she's expressing is, I am in pain. Are you with me? Do you care? Is that important? Are you with me? Right? I don't want to be alone in my pain. Are you with me? So when you say, I want Tylenol, you're just saying, no, I'm not about being with you. I'm about this thing, this headache thing going away.
Wow.
No, I want you to be with me. So when you say, I'm sorry, that sounds awful. How long have you had your headache? Wow, that's terrible. And invariably, when I say this in a room, when I say something like that, all the men are like, what? That's so stupid. And all the women are like, uh-huh. Because, again, to a man, you have to forgive the men. Like, the truth is that's weird, right? For a man, like, what do you mean? I'm going to tell you I'm so sorry. How long have you had the headache? That's terrible. How does that fix it? And the answer is that's what fixes it for a woman. She needs to feel connected and she needs to feel emotionally understood and seen. Now, just to be fair, the women are also crazy. Because when he walks in the door and he says, I have a headache, she's like, let's talk about it. And he's like, no, you want to help me get me some Tylenol. Problem, solution. That's it, right? And then she's like, why don't you ever talk to me? This is terrible. If you would just open up. And he's like, give me some Tylenol, right? So again, the difference is the main thing that men mess up and women do too is that people are different. Men are different. Women are different. And that's good. But if you don't know what they are on the other side of the different and you're not willing to expand who you are to explore that, you're in deep trouble. So I think that's the main problem. But
Wow.
it shows up different ways for different people. But I think at its fundamental core, a lot of the things that people get wrong are assuming the other person is like me. And they should respond like, and if I wanted help, well, then that should help you. But no, that's not true. You have men and women, and then you have the subset, which happens to be you and her. And that's very different. And you need to know that and learn about that and explore that. And then you're in better shape to start giving her what she needs. She can give you what you need, and then, you can go up there.
That's incredible. I love the examples you gave that men and women are so different. And one of the things that came to mind as you were saying that, I mean, we see it all the time. Us men, we always want to problem solve, and we're solution based, and we compartmentalize. I know that I do. Everything is I have like that's how I organize. And the women are completely opposite, like you said, and I love that. I heard one quote many years ago that marriage is 1% attainment and 99% maintainment. And I never really understood that. And what that really means for me is anybody can get married. It's how do you maintain that marriage? And I think that's the power of the work that you do. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think being a husband coach is there's a need for it because people don't understand the other. They don't speak women talk, and the women don't speak men talk.
Right.
So that's when where you have that coaching. How does somebody find?
Let me just, if you don't mind, let me just jump in. It's really important because what you said is 100% right. Being a husband, being anything, right, requires, if you want to be good at it, it requires work, effort, learning, correcting mistakes, developing new skills. That's how you get better at something. That's how you get to take things to the next level. That's true about driving a car, playing basketball. I mean, it's silly, but like the most important fundamental relationships in our life, we assume are going to go on automatic and it just goes, right? No, it does not. That's not how it works. And even if it does, which it doesn't, but even if it does, you're still going to be limited to what you are now. Are you with me? Meaning if you put in more, you're going to be more. And the more you are, the more your marriage is going to be. So it requires effort, and people don't know that or don't think about it that way. And because of that, they're locked wherever they are, be it a not good place or even a good place. But it can never go higher without more investment. So if you want it to be better, you need to put in the work. And when you do, then things can change in ways you really can't even imagine. But yeah, you got to put in the work. You have to put in the work 100%.
Can you share some of the work that you've seen that husbands put in? Perhaps maybe some success stories of husbands that you've helped and you've taken marriages to a whole new level?
Sure. The husbands that come in that are willing to do two things are the ones that are successful. Number one, you have to be willing to do the work, like we were just talking about. And number two, you have to be willing to look at yourself. Because when it comes to these types of things, it is super easy appealing to kind of, if she would just blah, blah, blah. My mother-in-law did blah, blah. Wonderful, great. And what are you, pray tell, bringing to the situation, right? So people who are willing to pick up the carpet, look at the dirt and the nastiness underneath it, and not be scared and say, okay, there's some gunk. Good, let's get it out. Look, stare it in the face. It's ugly. I want to see every piece of dirt and nastiness. It's chill with me. I'm not your wife. I'm not going to judge it. It's fine. Let's take a look. And when they do that, we can move, right? So if you're willing to take stability and you're willing to look at things you don't want to look at, and you're willing to engage with those, things can get better. I had a guy, really great guy, really great guy. And he came and he said that his wife doesn't feel that he loves her. Okay. And he was serious. I mean, I got the feeling very quickly that that's clearly true based on what she's saying and what how she's acting, and it was not pretty. And I said, why do you think she feels that way? And over a couple of weeks we talked, and he said, I don't know, I do this and like that, and I do this and I do that, and it all sounded very good. And then I happened to ask him, like, as an aside, even I was like, well, how many times do you say I love you? And he's like, I could tell, like, something like tweet. I'm saying, I was like, let's call him David. I said, hey, David, what's going on? He's, I don't know. How many times do you tell her you love her? Once a day, 2 times a day, 3 times a day? And he's like, well, I don't really say that. And I'm like, okay, why not? And I could see that he was uncomfortable. So I said, David, what's going on? He's like, well, we didn't really do that in my family. Like, I don't know. That wasn't just something that just kind of happened. So I don't know. I said, okay, well, we got to like work on that, because that's like a really important thing for everybody to hear, but for sure for your wife who feels that you don't love her, saying I love you could really go a long way to help that. So then he said, you know what? I've actually tried a bunch of times, but I get tongue tied in the moment, and I don't know what to say. And because again, for whatever reason, obviously it was not something that was comfortable for him, and he couldn't, whatever. So we talked about it, and I said, okay, David, listen, this is what I want you to do. We're going to take out a, what do you call it? Sticky notes, a thing of yellow sticky notes. And I want you to say something nice about your wife, and I love you at the bottom. Well, I don't know how to do that. I said, calm down, right? So I gave an example, a super generic example, like, thank you so much for dinner last night. It was delicious. I love you so much. So I said, I want you to write 15 of these. I can't do that. I said, you can do it. Stop. Right? So right there. And I said, let's go. And he did it. And I said, okay, now this is what I want you to do. Every day, I want you to take one of those notes, put it in her purse, put it by her pillow, put it somewhere. And that way you're conveying the message, but you're not, you don't have to do it in person, and, until you get more comfortable saying it. We'll see how it goes. The next week, he said, my wife is coming to the meeting. I'm like, oh man, like, I thought that's it, chopping block. I'm dead. Forget it. And again, I'm not kidding. It was a really powerful, beautiful moment. Like, as soon as the Zoom like turned on, she was like already crying. And I'm like, oh man. And then she like pulls it together, and she's like, thank you. I'm like, what? She's like, thank you. And then he starts crying. And I'm like, what? And he's like, I've been wanting to say it for so long. And she's like, I've been wanting to hear it for so long. And so I'm like, wow, whoa. You know what I mean? It was just a super powerful moment, because it was like, this one little tweak opened up like a whole world of connection that they were able to share now that they wouldn't have been able to do before. And, it just needed a little bit of a tweak. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Wow.
all of a sudden she had this whole thing in her head. He doesn't love me. No, he does. And he's like, I can't say it. Yes, you can. Right? We just gotta, put it together, and it all comes good. It's things like that are very, very powerful and very inspiring. And it's, when you see people really do the work and change, like he was willing to look at that, saying like, I know she needs that. I can't do it. Okay, good. So we'll make it so you can do it, right? But you gotta have both things. But he was willing to do the work, to be uncomfortable, and he did it. And things got a lot better very quickly. Thank God. It was great. It was great.
That's incredible.
That's good. Yeah.
Wow. That is definitely a success story, I think, in my eyes. How do you, I guess, in your goal of working with these husbands, you work with all stages and ages of different
100%.
types of marriage. Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you want these husbands to see themselves after the work they do with you? Is there something you want them to take with them and say, you know what, Josh has given me these tools? And is there something that, like, people that are an audience that's watching, and husbands that need your work and need your help, what is it that they could take away with them? Like, in terms of you working with couples or working with husbands, how do you want these husbands to, I guess, take away from the work that you've given them?
Okay, that's a great question. So, what I'd like, even before taking away, I want them to feel during, and even from the moment they pick up the phone to call or write an email to me or whatever. If you're doing that, you're a champion. I'm serious. Because it goes back to what we said before. It is so easy not to do it. It's so easy not to do it. And if I could convey one message to people, it would be that you are a champion, that you're a rock star, that you're willing to do this, and that you have the power to do it. Because if you know those two things, that they're true, your life can be changed radically, right? But the one thing I really want people to realize is that it's great people that take responsibility and do the work, especially when you have 500 off ramps along the way, right? But the person who stays the course and is like, you know what, I could be better. Again, it doesn't mean you're a 0 and you're trying to get to 10. It could be you're a 92 and you're trying to get to 98. Doesn't matter. But somebody who's willing to say, like, I have more in me to give. I have more in me to express. I know that we get closer. I know that we can be deeper. I know that our marriage can be more blissful and connected and amazing. And that's going to take work, and I'm going to do it. Champion. Unbelievable. If
Wow.
people walk away with that strength and that vision of themselves, I'm very happy. Very, very happy.
I wanted to ask you, Josh, there's so many different books on marriage. There is the Gottman Institute.
Yeah.
There's the emotional approach. I don't recall the name, but I think it's Susan, if I have the book here. But basically, there's so many different ways and approaches to marriage. Have you found that there's a specific approach that works better than the others?
Okay, that's you got a great question. Unbelievable. So I would say three things. The first thing is, of course, different things are going to work for different people. That's why it's important for somebody who's a coach to, have a variety of skills and have a variety of principles to work with, because people are different. So certain things are going to work differently for different people. The way that I personally try to approach these things is that I, as a broad structure, have like three different components that I try to focus on. Number one is clarity. Like, what is actually happening? Right? Meaning, a lot of times people will talk and talk and talk and talk, but we won't be able to nail down what's going on. Like, when do you do this? Sometimes. No. When? Who? What? Right? What's triggered? What are we doing here? Right? So clarity is number one. Number two is, and again, this is my philosophy and I've seen that it works. I try to focus on tactics as much as I can and emotions to the extent they get in the way of change. Meaning, for example, the guy I was talking about before, he loves his wife. I don't need him to, get up and say, why can't I say I love you? Why can't I say I do? Again, if you really, really, really can't and we have to go there, fine. But if it's just, listen, we're going to try this technique of communicating the message. That's not going to work. We're going to try this technique of communicating the message. And if not, then this one. If we're totally out of stuff, and we're fine. But tactics, actual changed stuff that you have to do. And number three, this is where it comes in, is accountability, right? Again, I'm here. My job is to push you to do what you need to do. Okay? So I'm going to do that lovingly and wonderfully, but you're responsible. This has to happen, right? Hey, guy, I'll spare you the details, but there was somebody who was supposed to be doing something, and I love the guy. He's amazing. And the first week after the assignment, after each session, by the way, after each session I work with people, we have this is what you're going to work on this week, and this is we want you to track and take care of, and we're going to start the next session. Tell me how it goes. Okay. So the first week after, he's like, oh, yeah. All right. Second week. It's okay. Listen, I want you to know you really need to do it. Third week, he's like, oh, I said, we're done now. Okay. I said, X. You need to do X. No, I know. I said, no. You really need to do X. He's like, okay. I said, you're going to WhatsApp me at 2:00 every day, and you are going to tell me that you did it. And if you don't do that, I'm going to start WhatsApping you. And so he called my bluff. And then for 2 days, he didn't write me. And I left like 3 voicemails. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Right. And then eventually he, got on board.
Got to it.
Right? One way or another, you have to take responsibility. So those are really the three things. Like, what is the problem? Let's get clear here, right? And number two, what do we need to do about it? What actually needs to happen in the real world of action doing stuff? And number three, did you do it? How are we going to make sure that you do it? And how can we facilitate it, right? I never remember to check in on my wife during the day. These are people, I was talking to a guy, this guy is a very, very successful, multi-millionaire businessman guy. I don't even know what he does. A lot of letters and technology. I have no idea what he's talking about, but he is a very successful person, right? And one of the issues he was struggling with was, I don't remember to check in with because we were talking about the fact that his wife feels alone during the day because he works crazy hours, right? And I said, well, you need to check in with her during the day. And he said, okay, but and he said, well, I don't remember how to do that. I don't remember to do that. And it's da. I said, what? I said, you have IT, blah, 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 AI, who knows what. You're making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and you're telling me you can't remember to text your wife? Give me 5 ways that you could remember that. What do you mean? I said, do you have a reminder in your phone? Yeah. I said, oh, good. I said, could you have your secretary tell you? I said, what are you talking about? Right? Give me 5 ways you could remember. And of course he could, right? But the idea is that sometimes it takes somebody on the outside to say, hey, do you want things to get better? Good. Then we need to do X. And then immediately you throw up, well, stop. You can remember to call your wife. You can remember, you're not going to forget to go to your business meeting. Your wife is not less important than your business. Okay. So call your wife. Anyway, those are kind of the zones I like to focus on.
I love it. And I love what you said. One thing that I really, as you were speaking, I remembered one of my Rebbeim said to me.
Yeah.
He actually said it in a public forum, but I remember it was like he was speaking to me. He said, especially with families, with children, husband and wife with children, the best form of parenting and creating an amazing like family dynamic within the home that you can give the kids is having peace in the home, having an
Yes.
amazing marriage. Having an amazing marriage is giving the kids the best life.
A
When it's the
hundred.
and I really I when I think of him saying that, and if I'm ever in a hurdle or in a situation, it always enters my mind, and I try to think of that specific, that Rav who said that the best thing you can give your children is a shalom bias.
Yes.
And I think it's so important. I was at a Shabbaton on a weekend getaway years ago, and they were talking about parenting, and they say the best parenting is exactly peace in the home. That was number one, and then everything else came along. So
Yeah.
exactly the work that you do is so pivotal. And if anybody was watching now saying, I want to reach out to Josh, how do I do that? Email, text, WhatsApp. What's the best form of communication for you? And we'll
Email.
put that in the show notes.
Oh, yeah. Just email me. Coach@gmail.com. Myhusbandcoach@gmail.com. In the subject, put Ephraim is awesome. Yes. Myhusbandcoach@gmail.com. And yeah, feel free to put my WhatsApp in the show notes, whatever's good. I'm very accessible, so whatever works for everybody.
Fantastic. And Josh, for any husband or a man who's about to get married, who needs that mentoring, that coaching,
Yes.
in today's generation, what would you, if you can leave them with any specific message, one message that they need to hear right now?
Yeah.
What would you say?
First of all, call me. I do work with Chassanim. I work with men before they're married. Also, that's number one. Please call me. And number two is that it's important to know one of the themes that we discussed before was that it's important to know that you're going to get as much out of your marriage as you put into it, and you guys need to work together. And when you do that, it's going to be better and better and better. And it's really in your hands. It's not like, gosh, I was watching something the other day, and it was like one of these, I don't even remember what it was, but it was like one of these like off the cuff comments. Somebody said like, well, it's a 50-50 chance you get divorced. So just, like whatever, I don't know. It's not random. It's not like a random 50-50. Do you know what I'm saying? Right? And maybe in certain segments of the world it is, but you can definitely make your marriage fantastic, but it takes work. Don't go in thinking, oh, I'm finally married, so I'm done now. No, you're beginning now, right? And if you want the love and connection and the joy that you guys definitely want and definitely deserve, put in the work and it'll happen. But you have to put in the work.
Wow, incredible. Very meaningful and purposeful work that you do, and it
Thank
can
you very
change
much.
lives. It could change lives, and I think it can change family dynamics, and the next generation is affected by it. So incredible.
100%.
I'm a big fan of
Thank
your
you very
work,
much. I appreciate it.
and I follow you on social media. I
Yes,
think
thank you.
a lot of the videos you put out are very educational, and I think one time I'll end with this. I sent it to my wife. She said, "This guy, everything he said is spot on," and I said, if she validated that, and I said, "You're so right," because you're very organized in the way you speak and the examples you give. It's a gift.
I appreciate it, and I think I appreciate it, and I think that again, going back to what we were talking about in terms of clarity, I think that is a problem because when people don't get things clear, it's very difficult to work on something when it's kind of all over the place. And me being on the outside and not being the one who's in the where the emotions are flying around in me, it's easier from the outside to be able to do that. And I think when people have a clear vision of, okay, this is what's going on and this is what I need to do, we're in good shape.
Wow.
So,
Josh, thank you so much. Again,
my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. It's an honor.
Absolutely.
You're the best.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Okay,
Take care. Be well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.